We're still making sense of the catastrophic floods in central Texas earlier this month, a tragic event that left communities reeling and raised tough questions about how we fund weather predictions. In response, Congressman Randy Weber, representing Texas' 14th congressional district in the United States House of Representatives, has introduced bipartisan legislation to enhance our weather forecasting capabilities, improving precipitation models and alert systems for NOAA. It's designed to give Texas more advanced warning to avoid another catastrophe. Representative Weber joins us today to walk us through the bill's key provisions and why it's so crucial to our region and how it can help reshape Texas' defense against extreme weather. Representative Weber, good morning and welcome to Hello Houston.
Well, good. It's actually good afternoon here in D.C., Ernie.
It's actually good afternoon here, too. I'm off. But also, it's not just welcome, it's welcome back, I should say.
Thank you.
But you're trying to make sense of some of it right now with the legislation you're introducing. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, absolutely. Of course, it's bipartisan with Deborah Ross out of North Carolina. And North Carolina had a pretty bad hurricane come up through there, the western part, really, here a while back. And of course, Texas is absolutely no stranger to hurricanes. So better forecasting models. I don't know how much I know about my Texas. I know Frank knows about my Texas district. The first four coastal counties from Louisiana, Galveston being one of them, Jefferson County, and then Missouri County, and also Orange County. We have a lot of hurricanes. Our thought is what we want to basically do is with our bill, which we hope will come up sometime later in this session, we're wanting absolutely to get the best things that we can from innovation, not through bureaucracy. We want to be able to forecast things during and we'll even roll in the Texas flood here, unfortunately, that happened in the middle of the night. A better system to get those kinds of, warnings out. Better systems for hurricane tracking and even Tornado Alley. None of our areas in Tornado Alley, that's Northeast Texas and further on. But it's just better systems, better use of funds, absolutely having the best tools necessary to be able to predict the kinds of weather formations that we all are afraid of.
Well, the models are there. They're pretty good. Any model is only going to be as good as the data that goes into the model, right? So the data's got to come real time, and that's weather balloons. And you probably know the weather balloons have been cut. There are only 92 weather balloons that are actually launched in the United States. 6 sites, 6 balloons in Texas, 6. And that people don't understand. We're not talking about a balloon. We're talking about a look at the atmosphere from the ground to 25, 30,000 feet up and even higher in some cases. And that tells us real time what's going on in order to make these forecasts. So what are we going to do about more weather balloons?
Well, I think, Frank, here's what is actually happening. Of course, I've been involved in Republican Party politics since Reagan ran for election in 83. So what's that, 42 years? And we've been talking about waste, fraud, and abuse for a long time. Well, there's a lot of waste. There is some fraud, and we're finding some abuse. And I think what you're seeing is, so many of all of the agencies, basically, they're trimming. The administration is trimming as much as they can. And I think you'll see us come back, and you'll see us do things that will help when we find out that we can actually bolster this area, that we can actually come back because, as you know, we have a 2-year funding cycle. We can come back and do that in the next spending bill anytime we want to. And if it so happens that Texas is under a lot of duress over this, a lot of bad weather, then we probably will act quicker rather than later. You know that there's supplemental appropriation bills in this process. So right. I wouldn't be too terribly upset by the fact that they've cut back some. It may be that there's some in the offing that we just haven't discussed yet.
Well, I know you've set aside $15 million a year in your bill. I read your bill. That's not a lot of money. Not when a weather balloon's $350 every single time you launch it. So you can run through $15 million just on weather balloons pretty fast. Yeah. But I don't want to belabor that too much. But what about? Let's move to the gauges on the rivers. Is that something that's going to be state or federal or both?
Well, that's probably outside my jurisdiction because here's why I think it may be it's probably in Bruce Westerman's, Chairman Westerman's bailiwick, if you will, because as you know, those rivers run. Take, for example, Mississippi River. A lot of these rivers come down. You've got federal channels involved. Now, we do have some federal channels in Galveston, Port of Galveston, of course, Port of Houston. I've got 7 ports in my district, more than the other member of Congress. Port of Beaumont, Sabine Nation's Navigation District governs that Sabine Nation Waterway. So there's federal money involved, but there's also states money. You got to give the state of Texas credit. Boy, they have stepped up with Ike Dike money. Some people call it Ike Dike, the coastal barrier protection, we call it. So it depends on who has jurisdiction, but I think in most of those rivers that we're talking about, delivering, trade and commerce, of course, it's federal jurisdiction, interstate commerce. Those that come through Texas, like the river that overflowed here, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I've been on that river. We've gone camping. We've been ballooning on that river a whole bunch of times. So I think the federal rivers will be the ones that will get the federal money.
I guess to stay on that point just for a minute there, to help me understand your position and how you look at it. So much of what we hear talked about at the federal level is putting things back on the states. But then I think in an area like this, it's something that needs federal because the weather patterns don't know our boundaries, and so they move through it. How do you understand and appreciate where funding should come for all of this kind of work when it comes to better understanding forecasting and all of that? How much is the state involved? How much? And I know that's a little bit on what you were just talking about, but if you could explain philosophy.
Well, tongue in cheek, the state or the feds should have hired Frank Billingsley because he was always spot on in predicting everything. Never made.
Well, sorry, we beat you to him, so we got him. But
pretty darn
But
good.
no, you're absolutely right. I think what happens, and look, we have the National Weather Bureau Service in Galveston, down in the League City area. I don't know how, and Frank, you probably know that. I'm not sure if any of y'all have been there. I've been there, toured that facility.
Sure.
So the states and the federal government do work together. Of course, I mentioned Tornado Alley earlier. It depends on who gets the most storms. We get a lot of storms up the Gulf Coast. My first storm was 1960. Was it 2 Hurricane Carl or 61 Hurricane Carl? Like 8 or 9 years old. So federal money, you're absolutely right. Storms don't know no boundaries, so to speak. And so there's collaboration, there's cooperation, so that the feds can help with whether it's weather balloons, whether it's stations like, for example, the National Weather Bureau Service in various areas. I think you see the states and the federal government collaborate on that.
Representative Weber, we did receive an email question for you. It says, the NOAA weather radio station, KHB 40, which provides coverage for Galveston County and surrounding areas, has been out of service since March 25. We are already midway through the hurricane season. What is Representative Weber doing to prioritize the reestablishment of this critical service on which many of his constituents depend? Thank you for your answer and attention to the matter. C. John Young, Jr. of Friendswood.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Now, we're actually fighting on another front to keep AM radios in vehicles. I don't know if y'all been following that at all, because a lot of people, especially in some of the rural areas, do get information, especially weather information, from AM radio. I was unaware that KHB 40 was out of operation, but we need as much as we can as in terms of alerting people that danger is coming. Unfortunately, for the people on the river Guadalupe, which I've been on many, many times, they didn't have a lot of notification. When Hurricane Ike hit in 2008, people could see that. And in most instances, as y'all know, hurricanes, you can see them coming 3, 4, 5 days out and make a decision to go. Now, some people don't know that Hurricane Ike, 190 people on the Gulf Coast lost their lives during Hurricane Ike because for whatever reason they chose not to evacuate. It wasn't that way, obviously, on the Guadalupe River. But we've reached out to NOAA. We're talking with NOAA about exactly those kinds of things to make sure that we keep as much weather information out there as we can. What's the best equipment, for the least amount of money, so to speak? Because on our Gulf Coast of Texas, again, 7 ports, more than the other member of Congress, probably more hurricanes. Frank might know this, more hurricanes than just about anybody else, whether it's Louisiana, even all the way over to Florida. So it's important to us. We're staying in contact with NOAA and making sure that we want to get the best bang for the buck.
Accordingly, it was a fire at the transmitter in Hitchcock that destroyed the weather radio, but there's no plan to fix it. So hopefully you'll put that at the top of your list.
Oh, it is at the top of our list because that transmitter probably is, I'm going to guess, maybe 20 miles southeast of my house. So what affects it will affect everything. But again, we will go back to NOAA and the other agencies, National Weather Bureau, National Weather Service, and others, and say, what's the priority? So we've got a transformer out. Are we lagging behind because the transformer is not made in the United States because we can't get our hands on it? What is the problem? We're not unaware of that, Frank. Thanks for bringing that up.
Another thing I just mentioned here, if you want to help us out a little bit, the emergency response service for our area comes right from our station right here at NPR. So if you want to put a little something in the bill to help sustain that emergency response, we'll make sure that people hear our signal farther and further and wider.
Well, we would love to do that, to get that signal, especially on our Gulf Coast. Did I mention we have a lot of hurricanes?
That's
Yes,
right.
we
But
do.
unfortunately, I'm not on appropriations and I'm not on Ways and Means, and so they don't listen to everybody, of course, in all the houses saying, "Look, I need more money in my area," and in truth, that's true in some areas, but we would argue that with all the, of course, Tornado Alley. We would argue that Hurricane Alley needs it really bad. So that hadn't escaped us. And we've been banging that drum, so to speak, for a while.
Representative Randy Weber represents Friendswood. Representative Weber, thanks for joining us on Houston Public Media to ensure that everyone hears your message.
Well, thank you, Celeste. I appreciate you all having me on.
Thank you.